Call the City Council for the City of El Centro on Tuesday, February 5th, 2019 meeting to order. Notice to the public, this is a public meeting. If there's an item on the agenda on which you wish to be heard, you're asked to complete a blue speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. Persons wishing to address the council, successor agency to the RDA, and successor agency, housing agency are not required to identify themselves pursuant to Government Code Section 54953.3. However, this information assists the mayor by ensuring that all persons wishing to address the council are recognized, and also assists the city clerk in preparing the city council meeting minutes. When the item is announced and your name is called by the mayor, please step to the podium and state your name for the record. Unless the mayor extends the time, there is a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address the council, successor agency to the RDA, and successor housing agency concerning any other matter not appearing on the agenda, you may do so during the public comment portion of the agenda. We can get the roll call.
Councilmember Oliva.
Here.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
And Mayor Garcia.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Silva is absent today.
Now, if we could have everybody join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and it'll be led by Councilmember Jackson.
Please join me in saluting our flag and our country. Ready, begin.
You could please remain standing for our invocation led by Councilmember Villegas Walker.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to be here this evening. We're extremely grateful to have so many people in attendance to show their concern for this city of El Centro. We pray that you help us to be wise and make good decisions that benefit all of our residents. Help us to be mindful of the many blessings that you bestow upon us. These things we pray in thy precious name. Amen.
Amen. We could have the city attorney give our report on closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The closed session led to an update on the FCC charter complaint that the city filed some time ago, about a year ago. There was a recent blackout in the Los Angeles area as a result of a dispute between Charter and Tribute Media. It was similar to the one in El Centro a year ago. However, it ended on January 11th after a relatively short period of time in which channels were blacked out. On February 2nd, so a year ago, Charter deleted CBS, NBC, and Estrella TV from its lineup in the Imperial Valley, including in Yuma, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Crescent City, California, and a couple of other markets, based on a transmission dispute with Northwest Broadcasting, which was the carrier providing those deleted channels. The backup prevented Charter customers from watching the Super Bowl, the Winter Olympics, and other programming on those 3 networks. In addition to a lawsuit which was since settled, El Centro and the cities of Yuma, Jackson Hole, and Crescent City filed a petition with the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, to seek refunds for Charter subscribers that were affected by the blackout and particularly affected by their failure to give 30 days notice. On June 8th, Charter restored the deleted channels. We have checked on the status of the complaint filed with the FCC. The proceeding is still open to public comment, and the FCC has not taken any action. We've contacted Congressman Vargas's office. Our outside counsel informed us that the only way for the FCC to close this was to receive a request to do so from a congressional office. And Janine Bryant in the Chula Vista office will be providing a letter to the FCC from the congressman asking that the file be closed and that the FCC proceed with action.
I have a question. Ms. Martin, is The folks that were affected up in Los Angeles, do we know if they plan to file a similar complaint?
We do not believe, based on what we've heard from our outside counsel, that they do. Because of the relatively brief period of time it happened, it's a market of about 3 million people, however, so their bargaining power was substantially greater.
Thank you.
And no other report.
Thank you very much. Now, if we could move on to presentations and announcements. We have a proclamation for National Marriage Week. If we could have Adriana Hernandez. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you.
So let me go ahead and, the City of El Centro has a proclamation for National Marriage Week, February 7th to the 14th of 2019. Whereas, marriage binds couples together in a network of affection, mutual aid, and mutual obligation, commits fathers to their children, and connects children to a wider network of welcoming kin. And whereas, healthy marriages protect adults as well as children, research indicates that women and men in healthy relationships experience better physical and emotional health. And whereas, marriage thus is the outward visible sign of a couple's desire to create a lasting life together. And whereas, research also indicates that women and men in healthy marriages are less likely to be victims of domestic violence, have decreased risk of drug or alcohol use, and are less likely to remain or end up in poverty. And whereas the City of El Centro acknowledges the importance of a lasting and healthy marriage and the resulting benefits therefrom. Now therefore I, Edward Garcia, Mayor of the City of El Centro, State of California, do hereby proclaim February 7th through 14th, 2019 as National Marriage Week in the City of El Centro.
Okay. Thank you for reading the proclamation and joining Imperial Valley ROP Family Development and Stabilization Projects and hundreds of other organizations nationwide in celebrating National Marriage Week USA this February 7th to 14th. National Marriage Week USA is a collaborative campaign to strengthen individual marriages, reduce the divorce rate, and build a stronger marriage culture, which in turn helps reduce poverty and benefits children. Overwhelming research tells us that broken families impact the health, wealth, and productivity of our state. Imperial Valley ROP understands that healthy and supportive individuals and families are better prepared to succeed in all aspects of life. IVROP will be posting a series of healthy marriage tips during National Marriage Week on our website, ivrop.org. So please visit our website for more information on that. Thank you again for supporting the work of Imperial Valley Regional Occupational Program and for your work in promoting healthy marriages and healthy families in the city of El Centro. On behalf of Imperial Valley ROP Community Foundation, we would like to inform you about the upcoming IVROP Community Foundation 2019 Dancing with the Stars Gala scheduled for May the 3rd this year at the Quechan Casino Resort. So please visit IVROP website, Community Foundation, for more information. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Picture.
Going back out to the queue for the Dancing with the Stars?
I'm sorry, what?
We're going back out to the queue for
Dancing with the
Stars?
Stars, yeah, May the 3rd. It's going to be over
First
there.
time I heard that. Is that the same one where our city manager's dancing at?
Quechan.
Yeah, I think that is the one.
So we have a star with us.
We have alumni too.
That's true. Thank you.
So if we could all go
Thank you.
down and present you with this proclamation and take some pictures.
He's here for the chamber report.
Okay, now moving on to our scheduled public comments. The Chamber of Commerce monthly report.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, Mayor Garcia and fellow council members. On behalf of Madam President Tara Rogers and the El Centro Chamber, we wanted to start off by thanking you and the city of El Centro for hosting our January mixer in conjunction with your Mardi Gras King and Queen coronation. We think the city was a great partner on that event. We had an amazing turnout. The courtyard looked amazing, and we heard nothing but positive reviews on that, so thank you. Wanted to share our upcoming air show gala this Saturday, February the 9th at NAF El Centro. Cocktails at 6:30, dinner at 7:30. Our February mixer hosted by the El Centro Regional Medical Center at their new educational center at the Imperial Valley Mall, 5:30 to 7:30. We will be partnering with Accion, one of our many members, to host a pop-up loan center at the chamber on February 12th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We also wanted to share that since our last report, we've welcomed 11 new members to the chamber, and wanted to share on behalf of the board that we're also excited to finally be able to be a part of the Mardi Gras Parade of Lights. So we're looking forward to being a part of that as well. Any questions?
Any questions from the council?
Thanks for all you do.
Of course,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Whose is that? Is that somebody's phone?
Huh?
On top of that?
Oh,
I
Jose
think
Lito.
Oh,
Yeah, he's
oh,
outside doing an interview.
Okay, got it.
He's still
So
recording.
don't say anything bad about him while he's outside.
So can we now move on to the presentation on the mentor program at Desert Oasis High School?
Good evening, Mayor Garcia, City Council, and City staff. It is our pleasure to be here this evening to provide a brief update on our Leadership and Mentor program at Desert Oasis High School. With me this evening is Principal Fernando Ocampo, who will be providing most of the information. But I'd just like to extend our gratitude to the City Council for their partnership. You will hear later today that two of your fierce police officers have actually joined us in this initiative and have provided leadership and mentorship to our students. And we're grateful for that opportunity. This is the second year of our program. And we started off with 2 mentors, and now we have 5 mentors that are helping us with this initiative. And so not only have we grown with our mentor program, our mentor group, or mentors, but also with our mentees. And so this year, you'll hear later today that our numbers multiplied. So the more lives we touch, the better our community will be. I do want to emphasize that this program focuses also on leadership. It's not just about matching students with members of our community, but it is also an opportunity for leaders in our community to instill those leadership skills that the students need to be successful in our community, and most importantly, in the workforce. So I'm here again to thank you on behalf of the Central Union High School Board of Trustees and our entire administrative team with Central Union High School, and also to once again invite the City Council and members of our community to join us on this very, very important effort where we are transforming lives and preparing our students to be more contributing and productive citizens in our community. So with that, I'd like to defer to Principal Fernando Ocampo to provide us with some of the specifics of the program and the progress we've made. So Mr. Ocampo, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montaño. Good evening, City Council members. Thank you for, having us here. Last year around this time, we did a presentation about the mentor program. And like Mr. Montaño said, it's been very successful. We started with 2 mentors, and we expanded out to 5. We had a total of 31 students completing and finishing, the program itself. One of the things that, with the partnership also of IVROP, who helped us lead also this initiative, by doing 40 developmental assets, which teaches leadership, community service, helping others, getting along with others around our community. These students have expanded and been, a great asset to our school, because a lot of them, come from backgrounds that, there's no one there for them. Sometimes, they come from single parents or no parents. foster, students, and, and they need, somebody to be there for them. And these 5 excellent, community members, 2 of them, like Mr. Montaño said, is Chief Johnson is one of them, Commander Ramirez also, Eddie Madueño, Pa Rodriguez, and Joe Montenegro. 5 excellent individuals, and every time, we had these meetings, they were always there, for all these 31 students there on our campus. One of the things that also we brought in was also 2 ex-football players, retired. One of them is Jerry Shirk and Eddie White, both of them played for the Cleveland Browns for 12 seasons. They would make the trip down here to us at least once or twice, to be with the kids, do activities. They did what they called a Warrior Shield. It's an art project, teaching them values and experiences, sharing their own experiences, because both of these gentlemen, they're already in their mid-70s, but they've been involved in the communities in San Diego with a lot of mentor programs, a lot of after-school programs, and and teaching young men and women about the values of serving their community, being leaders around their community. So again, thank you for having us, here and supporting, our program. And like Mr. Montaño said, hopefully we can get more folks out, to our school and be part of our mentor program. We're going to start a new project, which is called the Comic Book Project, and it's basically again teaching them skills about, kind of being innovators. By creating these comic book projects. They're going to publish their comic book, and hopefully, like one of them said, hey, why not? We might even become famous and go to Comic-Con, but we'll see. So again, with the support of our mentors and our community, we're going to be doing and trying to recruit more students into our program. So thank you for your support, and hopefully we can get more folks out there. Thank you. Questions?
I have 2 quick questions.
Yes.
If someone is interested in volunteering for the program, how do they go about doing that?
They can call me directly down to Desert Oasis. There's a phone number, I think, in the last slide, which is the 760-336-4281.
And what would you say the time commitment is if we want to talk with people who we think would be really good role models? What do you think?
Right now, we've been talking about, the incoming project, about, mentors being there, meeting probably every 3 weeks, for about 2 hours.
Okay.
And we took also kind of feedback from our, mentors that just finished, kind of tweaking things around. What would be the ideal, situation for folks, because we understand that everybody works and it's a commitment, that, they have to give in.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Moving on to our consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull an item? Okay, seeing that no one wishes to pull an item, we would bring that up for a vote.
Did we have a blue slip for item number 7? I'm not sure.
Oh,
2 for 7.
Let's see. I just looked through these. Okay, we have 2 blue slips for item number 7.
Do you have a motion for 4 through 6,
Do you-
or you want to wait?
Do you want me to pull 7?
Let's pull 7. So could we have Ambrose Ramirez? Sir, 9. Okay. So that was a typo.
Oh, the typo. Okay, so we're not pulling 7?
Not pulling 7.
Not pulling 7, okay.
Okay, so I think we can move for a vote then. We have a motion by Councilmember Jackson, a second by Councilmember Villegas Walker. We're going to ballot. It's approved 4-0 with one no vote due to being absent. Okay, moving on to item number 8.
If we could, before I begin with, oh, wait, number 8 is the substantial amendment, okay.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. For the fiscal year of 2018-19, one of the items on the activities was the lead-based paint and the asbestos removal programs. At that time, the funding set aside for it was for any testing and abatement for asbestos for housing rehab programs. As you know, our housing rehab program is funded, right now we're doing the housing rehabilitation through the home program. Home program does not allow for the asbestos testing and removal, so that's why we've always come to council through the CDBG process to request funding for that testing and, if necessary, abatement services. We currently have a client that is going through the process for substantial housing rehab. It's a woman that's over on the east side whose house has some, like I said, some substantial work that needs to be done. The testing was done on the house, and the asbestos test came back positive. The level of asbestos that needs to be removed was higher than usual, what we've normally seen, and the cost of it came back higher than what was requested. So we have come before council requesting a substantial amendment, requesting that additional funding be allocated to the project, taken away from program admin and reallocated to the asbestos program, so that we can continue with this, with that project. If the funding is not reallocated, then the housing rehab project that we have currently will have to be canceled and not go through. So at this time, we're requesting that council open the public hearing for the substantial amendment, and see if we have any public comments on it.
We'll open it at this time for public hearing. Anybody who wishes to discuss this item are free to come forward at this time. Seeing nobody coming to the podium, we have comments from council.
Ms. Cox, do we have an idea as to why this particular residence was so far off the charts with regard, was it the period of time within which it was constructed, substantial prior remodeling?
I don't have any of that information. I can find out for council. It was, like I said, the testing came back, and it was just, they said that the amount of asbestos in the house was just significantly more than what we've seen in the past, which is the reason for the higher cost.
Because it seems to me a lot of years we will go through and not
Not
even
even use
touch
it.
either our lead-based paint or asbestos. So I would be interested in
Yeah.
why.
And it did go through the public bidding process, and it was at that point that testing was done. And
Okay. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just shooting us a
Okay.
quick email. I mean,
Certainly.
that's not going to hold up approval, but I certainly am curious as to
Okay.
why.
So we have a recommendation. Do we have any?
do we need to close the public hearing?
We can close the public hearing on this issue.
I'm sorry, Steve, what's the timeframe on getting this project done if the funding is there?
The funding is there. It's the rehabilitation is being done by home, and we are in a very tight timeline. Our grant expires June 30th. So
everything has
after
to be
tonight,
completed.
if council does approve the substantial amendment, we still have to go through a 30-day public review period here at the city of El Centro before it gets sent into CDBG, or to HUD for the amendment to the CDBG annual action plan.
The time is of the essence.
It is absolutely of the
Okay,
essence.
well, comments?
Can I ask the 30-day comment period, can you clarify when that 30 days will
It
start?
starts tomorrow.
Starts tomorrow.
It starts tomorrow, and it will run for 30 days, and at the end of the 30 days, we will send in the notification to HUD.
I think we can bring this to a vote now.
I'm sorry?
Bring it to a vote. We have a motion by Councilmember Jackson, a second by Councilmember Oliva. And it passes 4-0 with one absent. Thank you very much.
Do the next one, I think.
I'm staying up here
Moving
for item
on
number
to
9.
Item number 9.
Before I begin this presentation, I wanted to state for the record, there was an error on your PowerPoint that was provided to council and also published for public review or public, it was made open to the public. And where the list of applications that were received for the CDBG program listed Woman Haven with a request of $10,000. That would have required Councilmember Oliva to recuse himself with his affiliation with Woman Haven, but that was an error. There was no application received from Woman Haven, and so you guys were provided with an updated PowerPoint and a list that shows that that application was not received. So because of that, the fact that we didn't receive an application from Woman Haven, it eliminates the need for you to recuse yourself.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 9.
Casey, just
Yes.
real quick, to clarify something. So we can only act on people that have submitted applications, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, because we have a letter here from another organization, but they did not submit
No,
an application.
you were given also an Excel spreadsheet showing the 13 applications that we received.
Okay.
Not all of them were public services, but for all the
Okay.
programs and so forth.
Thank you.
Okay, as, moving on to this item here, this is for the summary of the CDBG proposals we received for the 2019-2020 funding cycle. We are in the process of preparing the annual action plan. We've already been in front of council and received your guidance on your priorities for the year. After that, we did issue the RFP to public services or any call for projects for CDBG funding. At the end of the RFP process, we had received 13 applications, 6 of which were for public services. We received applications from House of Hope, from Catholic Charities for 2 programs. One is the House of Hope, the second is the Senior Nutrition Program. We received an application from the IV LGBT Resource Center, from the El Centro Police Activities League, Spread the Love Charity, and also for the Fair Housing. All 6 applications came to a total of about $150,250. For public facilities and infrastructure, we did receive 1 application from the Public Works Department for the CDBG Sidewalk Improvement Project, and we'll go into a little more detail on that one when we get to that portion of it. We also received an application from Community Development Department for the code enforcement and for $82,480. And then we have applications for housing activities, the lead-based paint abatement, asbestos removal, the off-site improvements, which are the 3 applications you're accustomed to seeing every year. And with this year, we're also including a housing rehabilitation application for $150,000. The reason we are coming to council for the funding for housing rehab this year is because, as I mentioned earlier, the home grant does expire June 30th, and we will not have any other housing rehab funds available after that time. The next RFP, that we're anticipating the RFP to be released in June, but we're looking at probably almost a year of the process of going through the RFP process, application, awards, and so forth. So if the housing rehab is not funded, essentially the city's housing rehab program won't exist. Part of that, like I said, it's not only for housing, part of the rehab program also consists of some of the issues that we have come up in summertime where some of the older homes in the city, the air conditioners can go out and the homeowners may not be able to afford to put in a new air conditioner, which creates substandard housing conditions. Like I said, we just wanted to come to council and request that funding because of the fact that our housing rehab program will not have any funding after June 30th. We also put in our application for the planning and administration of the CDBG program for $113,655. As far as the funding available this year, the HUD directs staff to go ahead and plan based on the current year's allocation, and this year's allocation came out to $538,277. Of that, we can allocate 20% for the planning administration and a maximum of 15% for public services, and the rest is for miscellaneous other eligible activities. We do have state program income coming in from when the CDBG program was administered through the state. We have an estimate of approximately $30,000, and of that, we would like to request we have available the 20% for planning administration. They have the same caps, the 20% for public administration, 15% for public services, and the remainder for other eligible activities. At this time, the city does also have $28,833 of uncommitted entitlement funds that you can allocate to projects also, for a total available of $597,110. Some of the suggested activities to fund, as you are aware, a required activity of the HUD program is fair housing, and the city has a contract with Inland Fair Housing and Mediation Board. The annual amount for that is $47,250, so that is a required activity. And we also recommend the allocation of funding to the grant administration for a total of $160,905. The public service funding, we have through the CDBG allocation approximately 80,000, or we have 80,741 based on this year's funding. And then we have 4,500 for the CDB program income, and which comes to a maximum funding for public services of 85,241. And as mentioned before, the fair housing activity is required, so that 47,250 will have to go towards the fair housing, which leaves available for public services 37,991. For other eligible activities, as you can see, we have 349,881 from the allocation, 19,500 from the CDBG program income, and the available entitlement funds that can be reprogrammed, for a total of 398,214. So as far as the other eligible activities, we are requesting the housing activities be funded for $175,000, and then we also request that the code enforcement program be funded. Their request was for $82,480. If council does decide to fund those activities, it would leave $140,734 available for other eligible activities. And as far as that other eligible activity, as I mentioned before, we would go into a little more detail. Public Works had turned in an application for the CDBG sidewalk on VIA. The estimate, I'm sure you saw at the bottom, the estimate on it is in excess of $800,000. And with only $140,000 left, we had discussion with the Public Works Director, who had said that we request that it be a more generic, going back to just our CDBG sidewalk project, which we used to fund often. And they do have numerous locations, infill locations, handicap ramps, and access, and throughout the city, not necessarily in one large stretch, but several different smaller areas that they would have an easier time funding with a smaller allocation, instead of trying to come up with the additional funding to fund VIA in the amount of $800,000. So is what I wanted to point out, is there was a change to just remove that VIA Avenue, and it would just be the CDBG sidewalk project. And so that's all the information that I have for council, and now is when we request council's direction on how you would like to allocate funding.
Well, I think before we do that, we have multiple speaker
Yes.
slips on this item. If we could start off with opening this up to comment, and I believe we have Mr. Ramirez and Mr. Perez.
Hello. We did submit a grant for funds from the CBDG, and we'd like to, at this moment, just, petition to the council why that funding is very important to us and how that funding will benefit the youth from the city of El Centro. The Imperial Valley LGBT Resource Center is a center that has been open to help the entire community. We're going on 5 years, and we have been developing programs according to the need. And it was because we had some veterans that were coming in to provide their services. They began to volunteer at the center, that we decided that we would do a program that would not only benefit the youth that come to the center, but also veterans. So we started last year, you can lower the volume. So we started last year with a program called the Youth Cadet Academy. And I want to let you know that that Youth Cadet Academy went beyond our expectations. We started with 11 cadets, and we graduated 11 cadets. And not only did it benefit the youth, it benefited the veterans, and it also benefited the parents. And I want to read a letter from one of the parents that has their son involved in our Youth Cadet Academy. Her name is Yvonne, and she is here, and this is what she says regarding her son's participation in the Youth Cadet Academy. My son Alexander was referred to the cadets by behavioral health. He has ADHD and PTSD, and they felt that the program would benefit him. It was hard for him at first, as he doesn't like change. However, after a little push, he has come to love the program. He looks forward to attending, and he hates missing a day when he doesn't attend. I would like to thank the sergeant and the chief for how they talk to him, help him understand and the repercussions of his actions. They are helping him realize that there are better ways to deal with things. When Sergeant talks to the cadets, she makes them feel comfortable. She is stern but encouraging, and she helps them believe in themselves. It says a lot that Alexander, this is a child, feels like he can talk to both chief and sergeant about anything and not feel judged. I am so thankful that we were referred to the program. I have seen improvement in my son's behavior and confidence. At this moment, just for you to have a better idea of who are the people who are leading this program, I'm going to ask Ambrose Ramirez, who is a veteran, to come and share a little bit about himself.
Okay, good evening, distinguished members of the El Centro City Council and other guests. My name is Ambrose Ramirez, and I'm a veteran volunteer of the IV LGBT Resource Center. I served 20 years in the United States Navy from September 1990 to September 2010. In October 2017, I graduated from Ashford University with a bachelor's degree in cognitive studies to be a substance abuse counselor. Upon my completion of earning my degree, I asked various agencies in the Imperial Valley to intern to earn hours towards gaining my certification. Since I was not certified through the state or had no prior experience, I was not allowed to use my skills that I had learned in and out of the military. With the help of Ben Reason from the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, I was directed to contact Rosa Diaz of the IV LGBT Resource Center to volunteer with the services that the center offers. In March of 2018, I contacted Rosa to volunteer at the center and explained that I had earned my degree and was not worried about earning my hours. Rosa talked to me about an idea that she had for a summer program for children of low-income families that would be military structured and would give children an opportunity to learn various skills. With the help of Rosa and Rafael Perez, we put together a 4-week program for children ages 11 through 17 to attend our program that taught them leadership, self-sacrifice, team building, basic military knowledge, and military drill and other life skills. We had outside agencies give presentations on hands-on CPR, self-defense, substance abuse, nutrition, tobacco use, first aid, college prep, and suicide awareness, so that the cadets could have knowledge that they can use in life. In June 2018, we ran our first Youth Cadet Academy at no cost to the cadets with the help of a local grant. We offered our cadets uniform, academic supplies, and lunch during this 4-week program and looked to have them go through a graduation ceremony upon completion of the program. We had 11 cadets sign up for the program. At the end of the program, we had all 11 cadets successfully complete the program in July of 2018. 1 week after the academy finished, we had some of the cadets come back to the center because they wanted the program to continue. So we started the Youth Cadet Color Guard. Sergeant Lonnie Guerrero stepped in with the Color Guard. The youth performed in the 3rd Annual Imperial Valley Pride, Cattle Call Parade, and in both Imperial and El Centro Christmas parades. They will also be participating in the El Centro Mardi Gras Parade. Through the help of veterans and local agencies, the Youth Cadet Academy has proven to be an innovative and successful program in El Centro. It has given our youth a strong sense of belonging to something that is greater than themselves, and they can be confident and strong, know that they belong to something that is greater than themselves, no matter the circumstances. Parents have shared with us positive changes that they see in their children after completing the academy. Some of them will be coming back for this year's academy. We hope to continue this endeavor to give youth something positive to participate in rather than being indoors playing video games or on their phones. It is my hope that you will strongly consider funding the Youth Cadet Academy, as it is proven to be a success for our El Centro youth. At this time, I would like to call up Rafael Perez.
City Major, honorable council members, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rafael Perez. I am a longtime resident of El Centro, approximately 38 years to be precise. I am an honorably retired United States Army Master Sergeant with 37 plus years of honorable service. Upon my retirement, I decided to continue with my education, taking advantage of the post-9/11 GI Bill, and I now have 3 months left for my degree in Human Services in Management with a gerontologist certificate. My studies required that I perform 2 field experiences within human services agencies in El Centro. I decided to go out of my comfort zone and intern at the LGBTQ Resources Center in El Centro. There I was given the title of Veterans Outreach Resources and Services Coordinator and Senior Citizens Resources and Services Researcher. Last year, the center's director, Rosa Diaz, had an innovative vision to create a summer school for El Centro youth between the ages of 12 and 17 to educate youth on the principles of leadership, teamwork, respect, integrity, and self-esteem to overcome adversity through physical and mental discipline. Mr. Ambrose Ramirez and yours truly rose to the challenge, and the first ever Youth Cadet Academy was established in El Centro, graduating all participating cadets 100% during the 4 weeks of its operation. This year, the first Youth Cadet Academy will once more open its doors to the El Centro youth, anticipating more than 25 students. This is why, more than ever, we need your support. At this time, we plan to go on for 1 week, 5 weeks. Thank you.
So we just wanted, again, to let the council know what we're doing for the city of El Centro, and we hope to be the recipients of a grant that will help us to continue this endeavor and make positive change in our youth.
Thank you very much. Now, we also have Sylvia Marroquin and Matt Desert for Spread the Love Charity.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. I'm Sylvia Marroquin. I am a board member of Spread the Love Charity and also the treasurer. That's what I serve on as for the board. And we also submitted an application for CDBG funding. We rely heavily on grant funding to support our programs. And, you know, 2 of the major programs that we focus on at the charity are a housing assistance program, because believe it or not, many of our homeless population, they do have sources of income. The problem is that they are not able to be placed in housing. And so that is one of the biggest projects that we work on. The other is the family reunification program, because, you know, we do try to locate friends and family of the homeless population and unify them so that they are able to get back to hopefully a normal life with the help of friends and family. So aside from providing a one-way bus ticket, we also provide other resources to help them get back on their feet. And so just to give you an idea, this past year, we served over 700 clients, 726 to be exact. We served 682 El Centro residents, and 44 of those clients were from out of the area. This coming year, we anticipate to serve approximately the same number, about 700 homeless residents here in El Centro. So we, like as I mentioned, we rely heavily on grant funding. We do have many fundraisers throughout the year, but that does not provide us with sufficient funding to support the programs. And so we would greatly appreciate your consideration for the funding request that we have made. Thank you very much.
Good evening, City Council. Mayor Garcia, Matt Desert, a resident of El Centro, 327 Santa Rosa. It's my pleasure to be newly appointed onto this board, along with a couple other gentlemen. Dr. Vo is new on the board, and Jaime Arnold from Burgers and Beer is new. There's some great works taking place there from Jessica. Her love and her passion and understanding of this problem is unique. And to know that all you need to do is participate in an evening feeding her efforts, and you'll see her heart and desire. She's bold, she's smart, she understands the background in this community better than I do in this area. Bolder than I at times when I'm sometimes lost and upset over issues regarding property management and other areas. This is truly good work. You have a problem with not enough funds for many good activities here. Not unique. It is not unique to that problem for a council or for a board to administrate. But again, this activity here is so cost effective on the reunification portion of it, and it's done in a smart humanitarian way. The offices are currently in transition. There's a lot of things going on, hard things, but we'll overcome those things, Jessica. Big numbers on this reunification and the costs of savings to the community for emergency services, cleanliness, or other streets. This is a forefront issue for all of us. I also serve on the board of New Creations, and we're trying to bridge that connection there because there's such a close relationship to those in recovery homes and to homelessness. It's a good reminder for those that are on their way at the recovery homes as to where they've come from. But again, the depth and knowledge that Jessica has and how she works with these people, many times these homeless people are victims themselves, and they have no voices or empathy out there, it seems at times. They're preyed upon by others on the streets that are younger, more aggressive, perhaps under the influence of drugs or other issues. So it is a worthy cause. It's a timely cause, and it's not only before the City Council, but it'll also be before the Board of Supervisors, and I hope Esperanza, who's in the audience tonight, is listening as we approach the county to also help and support these good works financially. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Desert. Okay, we have two representatives from Catholic Charities, Lupe Rodriguez and Polo Salazar.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight about our homeless women's shelter, House of Hope. My name is Lupe Rodriguez. I'm the Director of Outreach for Catholic Charities in Imperial Valley, and I oversee House of Hope, and would like to give you a bit of information on our shelter. It is the shelter for homeless women and children and single and attached women. We operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year with a full-time staff. We are an emergency shelter that is drug and alcohol-free. We offer 30 to 180 days shelter for our residents. Residents eat 3 nutritious meals and 2 snacks a day. We offer replacement clothing, assist with finding permanent housing. We serve women from 21 years of age to senior citizens, many of which need assistance with applying for Social Security, disability, or caregiving services. We collaborate with other agencies as well. Department of Social Services, Children and Family Services, to help reunite those mothers who have lost custody of their children. Mothers can visit with their children while at the shelter, and the children can come and stay during the weekends to be able to bond with their children and be under a safe and structured environment. We have collaboration and partnerships include CASA, Probation Department, Border Patrol, ICE, Women Haven, IBROP, Behavioral Health, Imperial Valley College, and we also assist women and children that have been trafficked, either by labor or domestic servitude. Many of these women with the children refer to us and might eventually go to the San Diego Bilateral Safety Corridor Coalition to get additional services and a safe place to stay. House of Hope is a home. It is a family unit. We all eat together, have movie nights. Mothers in our foster grandparents program help with homework. We celebrate birthdays, graduations, honor roll students. Many of our children receive top honors and do well while they are there. Children eat at regular hours, do their homework, and go to bed early. It is a structured schedule, but the grades do improve for many of our children. They make the dean list, receive Student of the Month or Student of the Year awards, and we celebrate each of their accomplishments. It is very rewarding to see families happy once while they obtain housing, employment, and feel safe again. Many of our residents come back and thank us and let us know how they are doing, and we're happy to hear their success stories. This past fiscal year, we served 120 people, 56 adults, 64 children, but up to date, we've served 166 people, with 77% of them obtaining permanent housing. Typically, a family's stay is about 2 to 3 months, with some needing more assistance to get their legal issues in order, or a senior citizen that needs to apply for SSI or disability, low-income housing, or they need our assistance to reunite with a family member. Senior citizens are special populations that we also assist, and I have to tell you that it is heartbreaking to see a mother without any support from their families, and we become their family. We support those senior citizens. As I close, I just want you to consider us once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Polo Salazar from Catholic Charities Senior Nutrition Program. I'm the Quality Assurance Case Manager. So under the Senior Nutrition Program, we have the Congregate Meal Program, which we have 3 sites in El Centro, one in the Adult Day Center, one in 1755 West Main, and one in the Blind Center that serve meals in a congregate setting for seniors. And we also do home delivered meals in El Centro and throughout Imperial Valley. We're the only agency that provides meals for seniors in the Imperial Valley. And beyond meals, our drivers do welfare checks for the seniors. Sometimes that's the only visit that they get of the day. They'll report any suspicious either activity, or we'll contact the family member. And in another benefit is for the seniors, they help to eat healthier. And at me, as I'm going in the homes and checking on the seniors, they tell me like how their pattern of eating changes, because they're used to just getting a meat and that's it, or meat and a tortilla, and now they're getting served rice, they're getting served vegetables, the dessert or fruit. So that changes their way of eating, and it promotes health, better health choices for them. They feel more secure because they know there's somebody's gonna check up on Monday to Friday, and it allows seniors to live on their home independently as well. This past fiscal year, our agency for 2017-18, they delivered 81,942 meals. Out of those meals, just in El Centro, at the congregate, we did 16,412 meals just in between those 3 different sites, and 11,065 meals just in El Centro. Currently, we have 39 participants that receive meals in El Centro, and that's pretty much it. Any questions? Or Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I have another council request, speaker slip from Rosario Velarde from SOS. Was this meant for this item, or was it meant for public comment? Because it's not labeled.
Or for the budget.
It's for something about the adult center for petitions,
So for the budget?
but
Okay. So with that being said, Rosario, the budget is next. We're still talking
Todavía
about.
falta. Todavía falta. Es el
okay, yeah, it's fine. Okay, thank you.
Do we have any comments from the council? Or do we need a moment?
Well, which means other people should step up. But that means if we totally fund their request and everybody else gets like a fraction of what they have. Diane, could we go back to the staff presentation? I think that there was some information in there. I'm sorry, the agenda report.
For this item? I'm okay with that. Stacy, was there a slide that had the allocations from last year?
There's an actual completely separate PowerPoint. Oh, the allocations, I
think
don't
it's
have a
in the-
PowerPoint, but I do
I
have the
thought it was in
information.
the staff report as well, right? Here it is. It should be,
Where it lists the priorities?
Usually there's what we had allocated last year, the expenditure, how many it served.
yeah.
That you
Here,
had a
public
sep-
service account,
The
well,
public
no, that
service
was
accomplishments
15.
are,
That was
yeah, we
15
do,
through
for
18,
the
yeah.
last 3 years of public services, it was a completely separate
So-
attachment.
That's starting on page 187. Whoa, there we go.
Okay. Why is it 6,000?
Can you advance to the next slide, please? Could be because this year hasn't finished. This was way. Do we have the next slide, please?
The next slide is Woman Haven, but you don't have a,
Right, but I
an
think what we're interested in looking at is the allocation for emergency shelter services, since we only have, we've got the 2 now this year.
and I did bring with me the information for the last 10 years or so, if you're wanting the allocations for anything
Great.
further back.
Next slide.
There is, I don't believe there is any, no, there isn't. There was only the 3 that,
The others.
But I think one of the reasons is the program that will also be, so
open is emergency aid. And when is that available?
I'm just going to be coming in.
Yeah, that was a PowerPoint.
I think maybe we should take a 10-minute break.
If I could maybe bring one thing to your attention that was just brought to my attention before you start doing any other discussions. Ms. Colio asked that it be brought to council's attention that there is going to be funding available through the Homeless Emergency Aid, approximately 4.8 million, and it should be available within the next 3 months, Esperanza?
Yes, we're going to go to an RFP process, and then it should be available in 2-3 months.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Can I-
they wanted you guys to be aware of that before you made any decisions.
The
Can
other
I-
question that I had for you, Ms. Cox, is if we are successful in having some of our housing rehabilitation funding from a different source, what would be your recommendation? Would we be able to reprogram that money then?
You could reprogram it to other eligible activities. It could not be reprogrammed to
right.
public services.
Right,
Because
but
of the cap.
just for example, if we were able to restore that funding from a different source, that $150,000, here's, I think last year, one of the things that I was pretty excited about is seeing if we could set aside about $50,000 in CDBG funding to help us remove dead trees,
Yes.
and that we were never successful in moving that project forward.
No, that was through HUD. They advised us that it was an ineligible activity.
So what would be considered eligible projects, and do we have to identify them on the front end, or can we identify them partway through the funding cycle?
No, we'd need to identify them now if you want it to go through as part of the annual action plan. If you don't identify them at this time, we won't be allocating the full amount, and I would have to come back to council for a substantial amendment to add an activity.
So help me with the off-site improvements of $10,000. That seems like a pretty open description of what we could potentially put there.
Yes, it's
Okay.
mostly for the sidewalks and curb and gutter fronting any housing rehab
So
project.
fingers
we have.
crossed, housing rehabilitation funding comes through, we could then repurpose the $150,000 or some portion thereof to off-site improvements to do some of the sidewalk fill-ins that we've talked about for a while.
It could potentially, the only concern that we would have is the timing of it, because they're not even going to be opening their RFP process until June, which puts the allocations through the home at the end, towards the end of this CDBG year. So we wouldn't even be getting any funding from them through this CDBG year.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Can I ask a question just to Esperanza? I'm sorry, Esperanza. The pot of funds that you mentioned earlier, can you clarify and state whether or not those funds are going to be dispersed through
Good afternoon.
approval of County Board of Supervisors, or does that have to go through the continuum of care council?
So the way the Esperanza Collioc County of Imperial, it has to go through the continuum of care, the executive board. They will make the decision based on the recommendations from the staff, which in this case will be the Department of Social Services. We are currently on developing the plan on how the funds are going to be spent, but the funding sources allow us to do homeless services, rental assistance and subsidies, capital improvements, homeless youth services, administration costs, and other services. Now, one thing that I want to mention is the County of Imperial submitted an application for rental assistance. So we're going to inject those funds into the program so that way we can spread out more the funding that we have through the HEAP program. It is expected that the plan will be completed in the next 2 months. Once the plan is developed, or maybe less, the county is going to issue an RFP inviting all those nonprofit organizations who wants to participate in the program addressing the plan. So in this case, some of those nonprofit organizations that are present today will be able to apply for the funds based on our request for proposals. The COC executive board will make the decision who should get the allocation for funds based on recommendations from the staff. But they will be the one that will approve the projects. So we're looking maybe like 3 months, Chief, more or less. Yes, we have a meeting tomorrow. So
And to just emphasize the
Yes.
bulk of those funds, the hope is to go towards housing, right?
yes, infrastructure improvements. Infrastructure improvements could be increasing the inventory for rapid housing, shelters, or transitional housing. Now, we can
find different projects in different areas. Only 3 cities are going to be eligible to apply for those funds, which is the city of El Centro, the city of Calexico, and the city of Raleigh, because they do pass the resolution for a shelter crisis. So it was a requirement for them to be able to apply. So let's say that the city of El Centro wants to develop 2 houses in the city of El Centro for assistance for domestic violence, family that is being displaced. They will be able to apply for the funds, but it has to go through a competitive process.
But it's one-time funding for primarily capital improvement projects.
Yes.
Which means that folks have got to figure out, after you build it, how are you going to sustain
And
it?
just to give you an idea, the timeline, we have to have allocated 50% of those funds by January the 30th. So, okay, so the breakdown, just to give you an idea, is capital improvements are $3 million, services are $600,000, rental assistance and subsidies is $350,000 available. Homeless youth set aside is $242,000. Administration is $242,000. There's a portion that is called other, which is $423,000 that we're going to be working with the executive board to identify how can we use those funds, but also contact states to ensure that they're okay with whatever we decide. So there's still an additional $400,000. So it's hope for everybody. Any other question? No?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had one question for the gentleman. I think that you spoke on House of Hope. I mean, I'm sorry, the senior nutrition program. Could you come up? I have a question that maybe hopefully you can answer for me. And the question is on your per meal preparation and cost, do you know what the number is on that?
I don't have it with me. Lori Edwards, our program manager.
Yeah.
Jason, I worked for a period of time for Area Agency on Aging, and when you factor in all of the costs of the food and the equipment, the delivery drivers, because although a lot of it is volunteer work, there still are a number of paid staff.
Yeah.
My memory is that the per cost for the meal, the per price for the meal was about $11, all in, by the time it's delivered and everything else.
That might be right, because I think the number I heard was only the food. So I didn't factor in the delivery and all that.
All of because you have to remember all of the costs of providing that service.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you've got rent for the kitchen facility, you've got the drivers, you've got insurance, gas, vehicles, all of that. So all in, that cost of that meal is
Yeah, I
about
can see that.
$11 to $12.
Okay, I think after some discussion, I'd like to propose that we fund the senior nutrition program with $12,000, that we fund the House of Hope for $10,000, we fund the El Centro PAL for $7,500, the LGBTQ Center for $5,000, and Spread the Love for $34.91, considering that we're going to have county funding available soon. We have a motion?
I think we have to wait till it's on.
I say we need to, do we do it on separate motion, or do you want to go through the whole?
We should probably do all of the components, if that's okay.
That's fine.
You aren't, okay.
Is there discussion?
Yeah, we can make a motion and discussion.
Did you want to talk about the
Yeah.
Allocation?
Sure.
Mr. Oliva, or-
I guess we'll probably all want to talk about it a little bit. I think, this is, and I think every year we talk about, this is one of the most difficult parts of what we have to do to try to fund, in this case, $160,000 worth of request with $37,000. And so some of the discussion that was being had in regards to where the funding could go and the biggest return on investment for that money. We have a senior population. I think all of us have always supported as much as possible because they are our most vulnerable, and the funding has just not been there. The state and the federal government have consistently cut funding to the senior nutrition program over the past several years. So we all believe that the funding should remain there. House of Hope, we've always continued to fund them in their work in battered and abused families and separated families and children. When it got to the other categories, I think we were it was a little bit harder. The one thing, and to speak directly to Jessica, because I think she's a little upset, we have the $4.8 million coming, and you're going to be eligible for a lot of that. But the City of El Centro is one of the 3 agencies that can receive that money. So we know that that money will come to the City of El Centro and will go to your organization. And that was one of the reasons, that was one of the determining factors as we spoke about how we can use that $4.8 million and get our part to the City of El Centro and then disperse that money to agencies that work directly with the homeless. As far as the LGBT and the PAL, that was kind of a numbers situation where PAL is serving over 1,000 youth in the valley, but the LGBT community has also been very active and very supportive of our residents, and their programs have been very successful over the last 5 years, and so we didn't want to leave them out. They had asked for some funding last year. We weren't able to fund them last year. We felt that this year was a year that we should recognize their work in the community and give them some funding. So not an easy thing for us to do, but we thought that was the fairest way we could do it. So.
If I could, when making this decision and taking a vote on this, I'd like the council, if you could mention that the funding for Spread the Love charity does need to be contingent on approval from HUD. As far as their activities, in doing the review, we feel they are eligible and they meet the national objectives. However, there was some concern that was brought up about the establishing eligibility of their clients. We are working with our HUD rep right now, and she's trying to make sure through the matrix codes and all the information that HUD has to ensure that it would be eligible, because the funding is specific to El Centro residents, and we're in an attempt to establish the residency for those that they are doing in their reunification program. She wants to make sure that, we talked to, I believe, Jessica's that Liz talked today. We got a copy of their enrollment or their intake form that we're going to be sending to HUD to make sure that HUD's okay with it and their eligibility determination process. And so if they're okay with it, then we can go ahead with the allocation and the award of it. But we'd like council to vote on the funding for Spread the Love charity, any funding that you decide to give, contingent on approval from HUD for their eligibility intake process.
How quickly do we think that approval will come?
I'm sure we probably have an answer tomorrow. We were going back and forth with answered questions today, and
So what happens
HUD
if,
goes home a lot earlier than we do.
Is there an appeal process?
yeah, what happens if they say no?
Not really.
Really?
It would.
But if I may, Mayor, part of the, and maybe Mrs. Scott can clarify, part of their proposal also includes rental assistance, which as long as they're assisting income qualified El Centro residents, that's a category that the money could be used for. So that, would be considered an eligible activity. So that money could be allocated for that effort.
Do we think under those terms that HUD might approve the funding for Spread the Love?
For rental assistance, we are pretty confident that would be eligible. It's the reunification aspect of it that, is questionable at this point.
Well, could we just move, if HUD says no on the unification, can we just move the entire allocation to rental assistance?
We do have the lateral to work with Spread the Love on amending their budgets to meet HUD's requirements.
And just another point of clarification for the statement, Councilmember Jackson, that you made regarding the distribution of the HEAP funding or any funding coming through the county. If the City of El Centro is awarded any funding, it would be for City of El Centro specific projects. We, and maybe Ms. Colio can clarify, we wouldn't be able to do any kind of subrecipient with any organization. It would basically be a direct funding allocation for the city itself. We won't be able to distribute. The agencies would have to directly apply to the county or continuum of care in order to be able to get their own applications. Just wanted to clarify that.
I thought that.
Because I didn't want to,
Yeah, no.
for people to misunderstand that.
I thought that the way it was explained is that in order for agencies within the jurisdiction of El Centro to even apply, we had to first have the declaration.
Yes, and that makes them, they can't apply directly.
But they applied to the county or they applied through us?
No, not through us. It's through
Okay.
the direct process.
Let me see if I can clarify. The County of Imperial is the applicant for the funds to the state. The funds had been allocated to the County of Imperial. The County of Imperial, with the assistance of the COC Executive Board, will distribute those funds among all those applicants that comes through an RFP. An RFP is going to be issued based on a plan that is being developed, and the only cities that are eligible to apply for infrastructure improvements only are the city of El Centro, the city of Calexico, and the city of Raleigh. If Calipatria comes, for example, and wants to apply for rehabilitate a house to make it a house available for homeless prevention, they won't be able to apply because they didn't pass that resolution. It's only required for capital improvements. Now, for nonprofit organizations, any other nonprofit organizations can come and apply for the HEAP program to the County of Imperial through an RFP, and they can do the projects throughout the whole county, whether it's the city of El Centro, the city of Raleigh, or the city of Calexico, it doesn't matter. It's a nonprofit organization, they can spread out all the funding through the different areas. It's not specifically for a city, but they can make it a specific, if, let's say, the House of Hope, they decide to apply for funds only for the city of El Centro, and they're going to target 100 families in the city of El Centro that they already have on the list, they can do that as well. So it's going to be in response to an RFP. Did that make sense? Hopefully.
So I guess I'm confused on why we had the declaration.
Because
I thought that it was clearly said or stated that no nonprofit or any organization within our jurisdiction could even apply for those funds unless we made that declaration. Is that?
For infrastructure improvements.
I'm talking about for any assistance. So
No,
let's
no.
say specifically we're talking about
Nonprofit
justice
organizations can apply.
So the city of El Centro didn't have to have a declaration.
So if you want to bring housing into your city, you need the declaration. But if you only going to provide services, the nonprofit organizations can apply.
Well, I think the intent, we don't want to get into the housing business.
No, but,
No.
okay, so
that-
let me,
So I think where Mr. Jackson is going, the reason we passed the resolution was to strengthen the case of our nonprofits that are already providing that service and have the expertise and can expand that service within the
Right.
city of El Centro. I don't think there's anyone here that supports the city of El Centro moving on.
I understand, but
down
I
that
think
road.
that I'm miscommunicating then. What I'm saying is, a developer or the housing authority can apply for HEAP funds to build a house in the city of El Centro and own that property in the city of El Centro through a nonprofit organization, not the city, the nonprofit organization. That is correct.
Yeah,
The
but I-
nonprofit organization will be the eligible applicant.
Right, but I think that really where we were thinking is, how do we best position our nonprofits that are already providing the service, House of Hope, Spread the Love, Woman Haven, Salvation Army, making them more competitive to address the homeless issue because they're already doing that to some
Yes.
extent.
So what is going to happen in the RFP, there will be a criteria that they will have to respond to that criteria. If, for example, let's say that a nonprofit organization only has one person running the nonprofit organization, when you go into the item for capacity, you might not be as competitive versus another nonprofit organization that has 5 or 6 members running the program. So those are the things that you have to consider. Also, readiness. If you don't have a list of potential clients list already ready to go to receive the services identified on the list, then another nonprofit organization has it, then most likely the other nonprofit organization will secure those funds. So I guess what I'm trying to say is those nonprofit organizations that decide to apply for the funds will have to be ready and prepare themselves to be competitive.
Are you going to accept joint applications? Let's say Spread the Love and House of Hope decide that they want to submit a joint application.
I cannot speak about that because the executive board is going to be reviewing the RFP before we issue the RFP. If they make a decision that that will not be proper to do it, they won't do it. We are at the mercy of the executive board.
Can I just ask a question? I didn't have my second cup of coffee today, and there's a lot of numbers being thrown around. But can I just make sure I got this, right? And that is, so we declared a shelter emergency, right? And that made entities within the city of El Centro eligible for these funds.
And the
right?
city of El Centro.
And the city of El Centro.
Yes.
Now, the city manager just mentioned that we would be able to do it. Technically, I guess, as we mentioned, we don't want to get in the business of owning property and managing it and all that
We
kind
don't
of
want to
stuff.
do it either as a
Right,
county.
so,
Yes, we're in the
that
same
right
boat.
there would make nonprofit organizations in a more competitive position to applying for those funds.
Yes, as
right?
long as a nonprofit organization is willing to build a house and manage the house
Right.
and keep it on the inventory, that will be fine.
Right, so the
Because the
chances
county is
just
going to
got
be
better.
doing the same thing. I'm going to give you an example. The Imperial Valley Housing Authority, they said, I'm willing to take ownership of the property if it's funded, but I'm not willing to do the case management. If you build a house and you put it under our name, we'll manage the property. We don't want to manage the property as a county.
Correct.
The nonprofit organization will manage the property. That's how it works.
All right. Can I ask back to staff, just of the proposals that were submitted, I see here Catholic Charities for shelter, Catholic Charities for senior nutrition, the IV LGBT, PAL, Spread the Love, and Fair Housing. Of those entities, who are eligible for the HEAP program?
Ooh, I would have to, I don't
So
work
can
with the
I-
heat, so.
Oh, I got it. So can I just assume then that House of Hope Shelter for Women and Children would perhaps be eligible? The Housing Assistance and Family Reunification for Spread the Love is eligible. Fair Housing for the fair housing activities are eligible for HEAP. Is that fair
No.
to say?
Fair housing, no.
Okay, Fair Housing, no.
Fair Housing is an advocacy group that provides assistance for folks that come and have questions with regard to housing issues.
Okay.
City has a contract with them, that we contract with in Fair Housing directly, so that's our
Okay.
contract.
And the reason why I'm asking all these questions is because then I would assume that if, I understand that just because you apply for HEAP doesn't mean you're going to get it, right?
Right.
But you're in a better footing if you're specifically in the business of assisting in housing and you're applying for housing funds, right? And our CBDG funds, CDBG, those are very specific, very tailored. But for example, the senior nutrition program couldn't apply for HEAP, correct?
More than likely, probably not be eligible.
Okay. PAL, for recreational activities at at-risk youth, could not apply for HEAP, correct? Okay. The Youth Cadet Academy could not apply for HEAP, right? So I mean, personally, I want to advocate, promote all the way for those applications that applied for housing and whatnot, and I'll just be upfront in that I have seen the House of Hope, the Catholic Charities, and the work that they do. I have taken constituents to Spread the Love charity, and they were able to assist them. I'm all for the efforts that they provide, right, and the services that they provide. What I want to be able to make sure I do is put everybody in a position where everybody has a shot at some funds, right? And if I need to, then on my own, within whatever position I have here, to be able to advocate for those folks that may not be able to get as much as they had asked for, is to support their application for HEAP
Right,
if need be.
Exactly,
right?
absolutely.
And do whatever I can in that aspect. But I want to make sure that whatever we allocate today, my hope is that we're allocating to those organizations that don't even have a shot at those funds.
Yeah, which was which was the mindset of what we were trying to discuss and where the funding would go. I'm not exactly sure. And I guess I had a little different understanding of how the process worked, and I believe when we had Mr. Phillips here, there was some discussion that somehow I thought the money funneled through the city, and then we were able to then support our organizations, and that was the reason why we declared the declaration, so that we could have that ability, and it doesn't seem that that's the case. But I agree with Mr. Oliva. I think in regards to, like specifically, we'll talk about Spread the Love. I personally have been an advocate of Jessica, and I would also concur with the fact that however this process, this RFP process works, that the city of El Centro should, however we're allowed to, whether it's in a joint application fashion or it's a supportive role, that we need to support that organization, because I think when we initially were made aware of declaring the declaration in the city of El Centro, I think the majority of us, if not all of us, felt that the reason we were doing that was specifically to help organizations, specifically like Jessica's organization, and get money into her hands that could get onto the streets and make some difference right away. So it seems like that's not exactly the way we understood it.
I think, Chief Johnson, were you going to answer the question with regard to joint applications?
Yeah, so if I can clarify that, so I can tell you it's the will of the IVCCC Executive Board that in fact we are going to be working with the nonprofits to strengthen those applications when there's an opportunity to be a joint application, whether that's a city or a county facility that could facilitate part of that grant application. We were encouraging that. We were in the talks of having, for lack of a better term, kind of workshops to help people strengthen their ability to be competitive in the process. It's my understanding, and I believe once County Council reviews all of these funds, that the COC will be the governing body that distributes those funds. And the rating criteria will be very public and transparent, where each entity is going to be able to tailor their grant requests based on some very broad needs, right? So if you look at some of it, there's diversion, there's all types of very broad, loosely termed areas where I believe many of our local nonprofits will be successful in that competitive process, bidding process. Hopefully I answered your question. So we are waiting from county council as well, right? So I think we all agree that the COC will be the governing body for the distribution, the rating of all of those funds as they go out to the individuals, regardless what category they fall under. Okay.
One last clarification. So let me just clarify something. If one of the nonprofit organizations has an existing home and they want to do improvements for that home to allow individuals for homeless prevention, that will require a shelter crisis, because improvements in housing are capital improvements. So even improvements like bringing an air conditioner to a house is considered improvements, and that will require a shelter crisis. Okay?
Thank you.
Another public comment?
So it's still open, right?
It's still open.
It's still open. Yeah, you can speak.
Yeah, so on behalf of Spread the Love, if that's confusing on their current application, Marcella, the restoration part of it, the bus ticket part of it, we'd like to pull that out so we don't have to go through that exercise.
Right.
And flag that with HUD as a possible problem. And you've got House of Hope, you've got Spread the Love, you've got Catholic Charities. And I can see the resolve in all the city council people that you guys have processed this. I would recommend that you do it 2-on-2, perhaps 2 supervisors, 2 city councilmen. I think you need to sit on it from your experience, Marcy. And then the chief of police and their committee, so you could truly understand what's happening in real time. It's no different than the past confusions that's happened at the ID over the local entity or the public benefits program at the county or the on-farm programs. You know, it takes a while to get this thing worked out right. But the need is the real thing that's busting everybody up out there is a homelessness. And you can see the resolve in all the city council members' eyes. So put it together now, a subcommittee or get together and let's smooth it out so there is success there. Because it is hard to build a home and qualify as a nonprofit and the legacy of the nonprofit and managing a static facility. That is hard and cumbersome.
The biggest issue, I think, Mr. Dedrick, is going to be how do you provide those wraparound services? You can build a home. That's the easy part, I think. The capital improvements, that's easy. It's finding the wraparound services to make those people successful in that home, right?
Right.
That's where we're going to have some challenges, I think.
Right. My knowledge and expertise on this is really coming from Jessica and Spread the Love, and it doesn't fit right there, right now for what we have going on. But the urgency and need is there in the community, not just El Centro, across the valley. So if we could help smooth out this process with Esperanza so there's more success there, not just for the city of El Centro, but perhaps other areas too.
Thank you. Of course.
And again, speaking on behalf of Spread the Love, I would just like to ask if you would consider reallocating more money to Jessica, to the charity, maybe redistributing what you have done this evening. And because, you know, she can provide assistance immediately, you know, especially because, you know, we don't have a shelter for men here in El Centro or just one place in the valley, you know, and that's where she can really focus her attention on, because the majority of our homeless population are men. So your consideration for maybe increasing her allocation would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
You know, I think it's unfortunate that the HUD classification wouldn't allow the reunification, because I think that's one of the most successful parts of what Jessica's been able to do over the last few years is the unfortunate part of some of the homeless in this valley, and specifically in El Centro, is that they don't want to be here. They're here under circumstances maybe a little bit beyond their control, and in some cases straight out fraud in getting these individuals here, and they want to have an opportunity to get back home. And Jessica's been very successful in that part of her organization, and I've been very supportive of that part of her organization, because I think the ability to get these people back to a loving family or a support group that can take care of them and get them reallocated or unified into the community wherever they came from, I think is very valuable. I think it's unfortunate. Now, are we talking about, if you were to make a guess, Stacy, and I hate to put you on the spot, but are you feeling that HUD is not going to allow that part of it, and that the entire allocation would have to be into housing in this instance with Jessica's organization?
We've only just had the brief conversation this afternoon. I think the concern that the rep had was just establishing the eligibility as far as, are they a resident of El Centro? If we can find a way of ironing that out, I don't think there seemed to be any other concern from her about the rest of the activity. It's just the eligibility process.
But specifically talking to that point, let's say we have an individual that's from wherever, Indiana. Obviously, we can't really say that, or are we able to classify them as a temporary resident of El Centro?
That was one of the questions we had, is if they are saying that where they slept on the streets here in El Centro last night and they are truly homeless, then does that make them a resident of El Centro? And that's one of the questions that we're going through them with HUD.
So under that circumstance, then we would be able to use the money, or Jessica would be able to use the money for the reunification or as it's referred to as the bus ticket program. Right, okay.
Mr. Jackson, in light of the comments, did you want to make any modifications to the recommendation?
I think maybe maybe it might be appropriate to take a quick recess and then kind of hash over the numbers, maybe a 5-minute recess, if that's okay with the
Take a
mayor?
5-minute recess at this time. After much discussion, this difficult topic definitely, it's very, very difficult because like Councilmember Jackson previously said, we're dealing with wonderful organizations and we want to do the best that we can, but we are limited in our ability based off of this funding. We did make some adjustments. At this point, we were proposing that the senior nutrition program be fully funded for $12,000, that the House of Hope receive $8,500, PAL receive $7,500, the LGBT Center receive $5,000, and Spread the Love to receive the $4,991. I believe Councilmember Jackson's going to pitch in the extra $9 to make it an even $5,000.
I will do that gladly.
So I think that is what we're proposing at this time. Do we have a motion?
There was a motion previously?
Yes, there is a motion made by Jackson. There was
I'll
no
maintain my
second.
same motion.
Okay. So we have any other comments?
We need a second for discussion.
Wait, I'm sorry.
We generally do one motion for the entire
Oh, for the-
allocation, so
for-
I need you
I
to.
think we're okay with everything else, right?
Can I ask, the motion that was originally made had different allocation funding? What was just presented, are you accepting that as a friendly amendment?
that's what I-
And
that's
that
what I
would
said.
be the motion in question? Okay.
Yes.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Jackson, a second by Councilmember Oliva.
And just to clarify, Ms. Cox, you didn't require council input on any other?
No, I've got, just
Got
all
it.
the numbers as presented.
Perfect. All righty.
The motion passes 4-0 with one no vote due to an absence. We have comments?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If you just allow me to say, I wish we could do more. I really do. All these applicants have their merits, right? And I'm hoping that those that didn't get the allocation that they wish they had seen tonight and are eligible for HEAP, I will tell you right now, please call me, please email me. I will do anything and everything that I can personally to make sure that you are successful in that application.
Diane, I don't know, now that they've taken the vote, if I can do this. I needed also to make that clarification with Spread the Love Charity that it is contingent. The reunification portion of it is contingent upon approval from HUD, and if not, that funding will be rolled over to the other portion of their
Correct. That was included
application.
as part of the
That was,
motion.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I think I've already said, this is always a difficult time for us, but, I want, as Mr. Oliva said, I want the organizations to know too that, look, you guys are all worthy of full funding. And if we had $160,000 from CDBG, you guys would all be fully funded because you guys are all great organizations that do great work in our community. I think that the opportunity for a couple of those organizations, specifically Spread the Love and possibly even House of Hope, depending on if they so desire to put in an application for the HEAP funding. I think that you have certainly my word, as I specifically gave to Jessica a little bit ago, that I will do everything I can too, whether that's using our ability to joint applicant to help you with some of the challenges that I think that you probably have had in the past. But you have been an organization that has shown results in our city, specifically, results that I have seen, I think all of us have seen and we all support. So keep your head up. We're gonna get you some funding through HEAP. We'll work with the county. We've got a great advocate of yours and ours on the executive board with the chief. I think you have some great board members that will assist and will help you in crafting the RFP. And whatever we can do as a city to support that effort, I think we will absolutely do. So I think there's a big pot of money out there that we can hopefully go after, and we can make some real differences in the city of El Centro with your organization. And that also goes for the House of Hope and things that you guys do. And if there's a possibility that you will also be going for some HEAP funding, I think that offer is extended to you guys too, because you are an organization that does great work in the city of El Centro. And the whole reason that I supported a declaration when we did was specifically to help organizations in the city of El Centro. I'm not gonna say I don't care about the other cities, but my job is to care about my city. That's what I'm elected to do. And so specifically from my point of view is I'm here to help the organizations that have roots in the city of El Centro and do their work in the city of El Centro. And that's organizations like yourselves. So.
I just agree.
Okay, so again, this was a very tough decision, and I believe we have a unanimous consensus with the council that we will provide any assistance we can in securing additional funds once those funds become available. Thank you. If we could move on to item number 10, our mid-year budget presentation.
I feel like we need a break again.
Presentation by our Director of Finance.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city manager. Welcome to our mid-year budget review for fiscal year 2019. This review is as of December 31st, 2018, with 50% of the year elapsed. We'll start with the general fund, and we'll go over the revenues. With regards to revenues, the city has received $9.2 million out of the $29.3 million that was budgeted for fiscal year 2019. That represents 32% of the amount that we budgeted for. And it is well below the 50% mark in a perfect world that the city would have received at this point in time. The reason that it's only 32% is that some of the major revenue sources come in during the second half of the year. For example, the motor vehicle license fee, $4.1 million, the second line on the slide. We have not received those funds. Those funds come in generally in January and then in June. At 32%, that represents the same amount we were at last fiscal year during the same time period. Okay. Now, individually, the first four revenues are the major revenues for the city. The major revenue being, number one, major revenue is sales tax. The city has received $4.6 million in sales tax out of the $12 million revised budgeted amount. This represents only 4 months of receipts. We're always behind 2 months. The BOE reimburses the city 2 months behind. And so it represents only 4 months of the sales tax. At 39%, it is a good percentage to be at. Last year, we were at 37% during that same time period. As I mentioned, the motor vehicle license fee is zero as of today, as of December, the allocation in the budget is $4.1 million, and this is a revenue that is received in January and June. For property taxes, we're at 59% with receipts of $2.1 million of the $3.7 million that we budgeted for. Normally, at this time of the year, we're at 55, so 59 is a very good number for our property taxes. With regards to TOT, that's transient occupancy tax, we're at $744,000 out of the $1.6 million that we budgeted. It represents 5 months of receipts. The December receipts are due in January, so it's only 5 months. For other taxes, that's franchise for gas, franchise for cable, and business licenses, we have received $250,000 out of the $715 that we budgeted. Franchise tax, we budgeted $75,000. Those revenues do not come in until April. For the cable franchise, we budgeted $215,000. We have received the first quarter. The second quarter receipts are normally come in January. For business licenses, we have received 5 months. This is another receipt where it's a month behind. So the revenues for December come in January. For building-related fees, we budgeted $600,000, and we have received 39% of the amount we budgeted. Last year, during the same time period, we had received $252,000, very close to what we have received this year. And our last year's revenues in this category were $747,000. Again, we're on a good trend. For service charges, that is 7. Those are revenues from recreations, library, police, fire, and where the city has received 36% of the amount allocated. Some of the revenues from the recreation activities don't come in until the second half of the year, actually May and June. For fines, other revenues, grants and other agencies, $124,000 out of the $1.5 million that we budgeted were 8%. This revenue is low at this point in time. A receipt that we normally get in December, the city will be receiving in the second half of the year. That's for $500,000 from the redistribution of the tax increment for the successor agency. Fines and other revenues, we have received $877,000. Let me see, that's number 9. That's transfer in from Crookshank. We budgeted $2 million for this expenditure, and we're waiting till the end of the year to actually make the transfer into the general fund until we have a good number as to how much we have spent for that project. And bringing down the amount of transfers in this revenue in this category. But overall, at revenues at $9.2 million out of the, which is 32% of the amount we budgeted for the year, but that is normal. It's traditional, the same amount as the major revenue sources come in during the second half of the year. So that's revenues. With regards to expenditures, the city has spent $13.9 million out of the $30 million that we allocated for the various divisions. That represents 46% of the total amount budgeted for the year. A normal trend is, at least we need to stay within the 50% mark that represents the December 31st. And we're at 46%, which is a very good trend. We're in line. Now, individually, general government, That category is above the 50% mark, normal at this time of the year. But the reason being liability insurance, there's a couple of expenditures, major expenditures that come in during the first half of the year. That's liability insurance and LAFCO. Liability insurance is $1.2 million. So a significant portion of this one line item is paid during the first half of the year. For police, fire, and public works at 47 and 48%, 43%, they're on track. Police at 43%, lower than the 50% mark, as some of the capital expenditures will be made during the second half of the year. Now, engineering at 38%, and then planning at 34% below the 50% mark in their allocation. And mainly from these are departments that had vacancies and therefore salary savings from those vacancies. For park maintenance at 51%, good number to be at. Some of the capital was purchased at the beginning of the year. For recreation at 44%, again, this is traditional, as some of the summer programs, there's still a significant amount of operations for some of the summer programs being, for example, the skate park, plunge, adult center, at least these were the divisions that were lower in communication with Parks and Recreation. There's some activities still pending in that occurred during the later months of the fiscal year. For the library at 53%, again, some of purchases made at the beginning of the year, for example, dues and subscriptions, as well as books and periodicals. For economic development and blight elimination at 30%, again, vacant positions and salary savings in that department. For Valley Center, we're still in the study phase. We have allocated for the year $22,000 by means of a budget adjustment, and we have spent $6,700, which is 31% of the amount allocated. Transfer out, we allocated $100,000 to transfer out for a supplemental pension trust to support our pension liability at CalPERS. This transfer will be made during the second half of the year. So overall, we have the city has spent in the general fund $13.9 million out of the $30 million that we allocated, which is 46% of the budget, so on track and in line with previous years. Now, with regards to the fund balance, we have allocated and designated amounts for the various potential liabilities, and that's per the city's financial reserve policy, which calls for the city to establish, dedicate, maintain reserves to meet known and estimated future obligations. And this is a list of those potential obligations. The city started the year with $12.6 million, and after the budgeted amount, budgeted revenue of $29.3 million and the estimated operating expenditures of $30 million, we have an initial negative balance of $775,000. Those were allocated out of the budget from fund balance for one-time projects, one-time capital, and so on. So to the beginning fund balance of $12.6 million, we deduct the $775,000, leaving the city at the end projected ending fund balance for the city as of the end of the fiscal year of $11.8 million. As mentioned before, we have allocated that fund balance for the various potential liabilities, such as the 10% of economic unknowns. That's for contingencies, for emergencies, and that amount we allocated is $3 million. We have also allocated $2 million for the accrued leave liability. That's all employees in the general fund for vacation and so on. $2 million, which corresponds to the full amount of the liability. We have allocated for vehicle and major equipment replacement $5 million. We have allocated for the Crookshank contingency $1 million. As you know, that is a project that is estimated to cost anywhere from $4 to $6 million. We had set aside $3.5 million for a different endeavor, OPEB liability, which we have met completely. And that will be used for Crookshank, leaving an additional $1.5 million to $2 million out of fund balance in the general fund. For revenue stabilization, we allocated $890,000 in case revenues don't come in as we are projecting. We have that cushion within our fund balance to make up for it. So overall, a complete allocation of $11.8 million of our fund balance. Now, with regards to Measure P, those are the revenues coming in from the incremental sales tax. We have received through December 31st, $8.6 million. That's for the various fiscal years, starting in fiscal year 2017. And the city has committed $4.8 million of those funds by means of working groups and various priorities that were established by means of commitment round 1 and commitment round 2, as well as a $37,000 for the Christmas lights and financial consultants. The remaining balance as of December is $3.7 million. Now, with regards to Measure P, we'll be starting our working groups again to determine what the priority are for the various projects. As you know, with Measure P revenues, we will be going out and issuing bonds to obtain the funds for various capital projects. We need to determine what the priority of those projects will be. And then we're also waiting for various feasibility studies, police, and some other ones, to be able to have everything ready so that the city can go out to issue bonds and obtain the funds. We already have a finance team in place, our financial advisors, our bond counsel. We have obtained presentations to determine more or less at this point in time how much would be available through those bonds for those projects. It is estimated if those studies are completed in time that the issue will be made late 2019, early 2020. With every budget presentation, whether it's a mid-year, whether it's during the budget process, I like to present what the budget challenges are within the general fund or within whatever fund I'm discussing. In this case, it's the general fund, and there are some challenges, significant challenges coming up on the horizon. Some of those challenges are the increase in expenditures from salaries, from pension costs at CalPERS, from new facilities that are coming up, such as the Aquatic Center, which will increase operational and personnel costs to the general fund. The other challenges is the decline in fund balance. As I mentioned, I put a shortfall, but the allocation that we took from fund balance this fiscal year for one-time operations and capital of $775,000. But there's other concerns. And the concern is the city finances, the limited resources, the infinite amount of needs, dollar amount for the various needs, the demands for services and programs that continue to increase. We want more programs. We need new programs, longer hours for our facilities. Those add up, and they're putting a strain on our general fund. We have also capital. In this fiscal year, we allocated $1.7 million. It is a one-time allocation. However, needs for capital replacement continue to exist, and we cannot do without any capital allocation in our future budgets. So again, that is a challenge that we have to meet, because we're not only trying to meet our ongoing operations, but we also have to there is a need to replace a lot of our aging infrastructure. One of the main causes of the crisis within general fund for a lot of cities, not only for the city of El Centro, is the continuous increase in our pension, in the pension liability, and the subsequent allocation and payments being required from cities. Our pension liability has increased significantly over the past few years, and is still projected to increase almost $3 million within the next 5 years. Those increases are because of CalPERS less than adequate or less than projected investment returns. They're changing actuarial assumptions. Employees are living longer, and the change in the amortization of the liability from a rolling forward amortization to a fixed amortization 30 years, and it stays like that, and so the liability increases and the payment that has to be made by the city continues to increase. Another challenge within the general fund are the compensation packages per the new MOUs, which rates range from 2% to 7%. I was at a workshop up in San Francisco from the League of Cities. It's a finance institute, and they had representation from various cities throughout California. And in one of those presentations, what caught my attention is that the average, they mentioned that the average increase being negotiated or provided in the new MOUs was an average of 2% for Southern California and 3% for Northern California. I thought it was interesting. For fiscal year 19, as I mentioned, we have the $775,000 that we're allocating from fund balance for those one-time projects. And in moving forward with future budgets, this is something that we can say, well, it was one time, it won't be repeated again in future years, and that was the plan. However, and that was a plan with example, with regards to the convention center, the feasibility study, $125,000, not to be repeated again in the next, in future budgets. The aquatic center, a pool plan, pool study, $65,000. However, there's some other programs that are looking more long-term, such as this year, we provided allocations within this budget, within those one-time funds, but more and more, there's more of an interest and of a want to keep, a need to keep these programs open in future years. And what does that mean? For example, police program, $65,000, the tree removal program that was originally allocated in the budget, but converted to a code enforcement temporary salaries and some other activities. And what does that mean is that we allocated for them this year as a one-time project, but if they are going to continue into future budgets, that means that that shortfall will continue to increase. Because what happens is that expenditures are increasing at a much faster rate than what our revenues are increasing at. One of the things that I did, and I continue, I have a budget projection model that I developed for the next 5 years, and I keep updating that as things change, as new numbers come up, projections, and so on. And so what I did is I updated these projections to reflect the new MOUs, the new salaries, and so on. Those projections are for the next 5 fiscal years, which start in fiscal year 2020 and go through fiscal year 2024. Some of the assumptions within the 5-year projections, and what I did is I said, okay, let me start with this year. What do we have in revenues and expenditure? I plugged in, I added the amounts, estimated salaries based on the new MOUs. For fiscal year 19, 20, 21, we already have those MOUs in place. I also, for fiscal year 22, 23, and 24, I calculated the salaries based on the average change increase in CPI of 2%, Consumer Price Index. And then I inserted the increase in CalPERS, and that's per the valuation reports that are provided by CalPERS on an annual basis, which provide what our liability will be for the year, as well as what they're projecting the rates will be for the next 5 years. So I plugged in those numbers, I did my calculations and added that. Now, CalPERS projections reflect an average increase in salaries of 3%. And so I know that once they, the new rates, the new salary increases are provided to CalPERS, that our liability will be much higher than the $2.9 million projected, because the salary increases for the city were a lot higher than what they're projecting, 3%. So that is included within these projections that I'm going to show you in the next few slides. For the Aquatic Center, as you know, we have new facilities coming up, the main one being the Aquatic Center, which is estimated at this point to increase expenditures by approximately $550,000. Very substantial amount. It is yet to be seen. This is only based, what I did is I took the estimates for 2 other aquatic center facilities in San Diego, kind of adjusted it to what our level of operations will be here in the valley, and then came up with this number. How accurate it is, it's yet to be seen. That was the best estimate based on what I had at that moment in time, best information that I had at that moment in time. For capital, various divisions. Well, this year's budget included $1.7 million. My projections for next year, just so that I could put some numbers together, I included an allocation of approximately $600,000 per year in capital, various divisions. For supplies and services, I pretty much try to maintain it at the same level as now. I wanted to see where do we stand in the next few years with current level of operations. However, I know that what was the liability insurance and a couple of other things, IVRMA, we have a maintenance agreement and so on. So the total of those was about $300,000. Added that to the model for the next 5 years per year. And then no status quo for no new programs and no new positions, just status quo the way we are. And then including to that, the $2 million to be taken from fund balance for Crookshank. So with just these changes based on documents from the various agencies, CalPERS and so on, MOUs and so on, the shortfall in fiscal year 2020, that's the year we're starting to sit down with the department directors and go through what their requests are and projections for next year. It looks like a shortfall of $3 million. Mind you, $2 million of that is the Crookshank project if we push that project forward to next year. And $1 million is the increase from salary increases, pension increases, continuous programs that make up the current shortfall, new facilities, and then the $300,000 for supplies and services that I mentioned. The increase, the shortfall of $1 million is after an increase in revenues of approximately $1 million. So I adjusted sales tax, property taxes, TOT, motor vehicle license fee for the next few years to reflect increases, some of them based on CPI and some of them based on current history. For example, sales tax revenues were higher than expected last fiscal year, and the way they look right now, they're a little bit higher. So based on that, I did my projections, and overall for those categories, I increased revenues by about $1 million. And even with that $1 million in revenues, we're still showing a $3 million shortfall in the general fund in 2020. The shortfalls the following years look like this. And again, no major changes to current operations. This is just dealing with CalPERS, salaries, $300,000 in supplies and services, the new aquatic center, $600,000 in capital. And then capital for the aquatic center reimbursed by Measure P. That was the only thing that I took from Measure P, but everything else pretty much status quo. Fiscal year 20, that's a 2.9, almost $3 million shortfall. Fiscal year 21, again, revised all the numbers to reflect the various reports, a shortfall of 2 million, 2.8, 3.3, 3.5. Our fund balance, starting at $12.6 million, continues to decline based on these projections. What happens is that expenses are growing at a much, much faster pace than what our revenues are growing at, even with that $1 million increase, projected increase for the next few years. It's concerning. And as we start to work on next year's budget, we have come together as a team. I met with our city manager. Subsequent to that, I met with, again, city manager as well as all the directors in an effort to come up with, to discuss various actions for next year and to come up with some type of plan as to how, or an effort as to how we are as a city going to reduce this $3 million shortfall in 2020. And again, we need to do that as well in the future. We need to reduce expenses or at least start during this first round and maintain those expenses at the current level. We need to be proactive to address those shortfalls. We need to develop a plan of action. And what concerns me at this point in time is these are the projections based on what the economy looks like at this point in time. If there is another recession, any economic downturn, then those revenues normally decline as well, and then it's just those shortfalls will be a whole lot worse. For example, in fiscal year 2010, the city during that major recession lost 15% of the general fund revenues. So one recession just, I think it was $5 million that we lost that out of a 28 back then million budget. Very significant. So it's always a concern. And then the other concern that I have at this point in time is that if we got together as a team, as a city, as the director, city manager, and so on, how do we do this? What do we cut? What do we lower? But the wiggle room is not a lot because, for example, in this graph for fiscal year 2019, the blue section, that's the allocation for salaries and benefits. So in reality, if we're going to cut, it's only that red portion, which is 15%. In future budgets, the capital portion is only 2%. That means that overall we have 17% of the budget, which is only $5 million out of a $30 million budget, to make any cuts, any adjustments to try to balance this shortfall. And then how do we cut to balance this shortfall when that's supplies and services? Supplies and services, we need that to run our current operations. We already, since 2010, have been, in an effort to improve our financial position, have been trying to maintain a lot of these expenditures. And a lot of the departments are already operating at very limited levels. And it is a concern moving forward. What do we do with the $5 million that we have discretionary? Well, I say that lightly, but really a lot of these things are not discretionary. We have contracts, cleaning contracts, just contracts that we have to meet within supplies and services. So that $5 million is a lot smaller when we take into consideration those contracts that have already been made by the city. In presenting to the departments, I do my research and so on, and I came up upon an article. It was in Public CEO, and it was called "Cities Struggle with Pensions to Meet Their Pension Obligations." And a lot of the cities are in the same situation, pensions increasing, and the main ones being our law enforcement. Those are the most expensive. And some of the options being taken into consideration by other cities being considered are increasing their sales tax, and then or increase the employee contribution for employer pension cost. Again, it's in the early stages. They haven't committed to any of these. It's just in exploring phase. But a lot of cities are in the same situation for similar reasons as well. I mentioned the most expensive pension for the cities is safety. City pays $2.9 million, $3.8 million, and out of that, 2.9 is for safety. That's 78% of our pension obligation our pension cost is for safety. Very expensive plans. That concludes my presentation for the general fund. Briefly for any questions? Yeah.
I have one comment and one question. So one of the things I think that we definitely want to do is reactivate our Measure P working groups as soon as possible. Unfortunately, what we're hearing in the industry is that your construction costs have gone up anywhere from 20 to 30%. So what we're looking to do, what we had hoped to do in terms of building the new police station, the new library, renovations at Valley Plaza, if we get the opportunity to do something with a new fire station, those cost projections that we had at one time, you can now add somewhere between 20 and 30%. So I think that we definitely need to get those Measure P working groups reactivated. Ms. Salcido, you said something about maybe we could have the bond issuance by the end of this year. We have got to push that forward. We've really...
What happens is that we're waiting for those studies to be completed.
Yes.
What we want is to have an idea of what the cost will be for
Right.
the various projects.
The second question is, I understand that we are coming to conclusion with a fee study. Is that true? When will that be coming back to us?
It was supposed to be coming at the second meeting of this month, but it's been pushed forward to the first meeting in March.
Could we, I will be absent on March 5th. Can we push that forward to the second meeting in March? It's just the evaluation, or to come forward to. Do we have an idea as to what the preliminary numbers are going to show us with regard to the fee study?
I think based on the feedback that we receive, I mean, there's no question that our fees are very low, extremely low. I mean, we haven't looked at updating or reviewing our fees, and I guess it's been years.
15 years.
So you will see that they are going to increase, and so that will be presented to you. So yes, we can bring it forward, second meeting in March.
So, Ms. Salcido, with regard to your 5-year budget projections, has the new fee study or any increase in those fees that I really think has not occurred for a couple of decades now, that has not yet been factored in? So maybe that's a tiny little silver lining in what you've presented so far.
I took that into consideration. Those numbers are not included in these projections, and the reason being that a lot of those fees, while the full cost rate will be up here,
Right.
very substantial increase from where we're at.
Yes.
We also have to take into consideration what the community can afford. So I know that a lot of those fees will not be increasing to that full level, but whether it's at halfway or so on, the amount of monies that will be generated by that fee study, by the increase in those fees, in my opinion, is in the hundred thousands.
Okay.
Where we have a shortfalls of 2 million, 3 million. So it was very insignificant with regards to these numbers for the next 5 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I don't necessarily have a question, but I just wanted to highlight and thank and commend our city manager and department heads for having met, taking the leadership in reducing costs, because these projections are pretty scary.
Yes,
and
they
if
are.
anybody who may or may not have followed through or paid attention, we're going to be facing some tough times up here. And so I just wanted to say that outright, that this is a scary thing, right? This is probably one of the worst items since I've been elected to have to be facing. But with that said, I think it's important for us up here to start thinking of potential revenues, anything that comes before us that could potentially increase our sales tax or other revenues, we should consider it, as well as being able to have a bigger role in advocacy towards funding tools and programs in Sacramento, and making sure that any mandates aren't exacerbating the situation and our financial obligation, but at the same time, perhaps advocating towards other programs like RDA 2.0 or any other programs that we can do in order to get a tax increment that would be able to give us some funding to addressing some of these obligations and improving our finances. But thank you so far.
You're welcome. I'd just like to say that with regards to our major revenues, being sales tax, motor vehicle license fee, property taxes, those have increased significantly. At this point in time, it's not a matter of revenue increases, it's more of controlling expenditures. And it's really hard because a lot of those, like I said, really, my discretionary would be the 15%, $5 million from supplies and services, because the rest of it is commitments for pension and salaries. With regards to, so that completes my general fund presentation. I just want to emphasize that you're right, we're in for some tough times. Not sure at this point in time what the plan of action will be, but we're exploring everything. Okay. Moving on, water and wastewater, our enterprise funds. We'll start with water. With regards to water, a very good standing. We have a total revenue of $5 million. Out of the $8.8 million that we budgeted, that's 57% of the amount allocated. For expenses, operating as well as non-operating, we're at 41%. We have spent $4 million of the $9 million, and we're projecting an ending working capital. Our fund balance, or this is what we call it in water and wastewater, our working capital projected for the end of the year is $15.8 million. Overall, doing well in the water fund. With regards to wastewater, we have received $5 million of operating revenue out of the $9 million that we budgeted for. We are at 51%. For other non-operating revenue, that shows a 0%. That's a grant, which it's on a reimbursement basis, and the city will receive those funds when those projects are completed. Overall, total revenue, $5.2 million out of the 16, but from operating revenues, we are good at 51%. For total expenses, we have spent $3.9 million of the $17 million allocated for this budget. Mainly, it's only 23% of the amount we allocated. Mainly, the lower amount is due to capital projects. We allocated $9 million. We have spent approximately $500,000. So I expect some of those projects will be completed during the second half of the year. Overall, we're projecting an ending working capital of $8.3 million for the wastewater fund. Again, and trend in line with what is expected at this time of the year for the enterprise funds. And that completes my presentation.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much, Ms. Salcido, for all of your diligent work, and also thank you to our city staff and directors for getting together. This is a big project with a lot of moving numbers, and we're definitely dealing with situations that are going to be arising, and we're going to have to plug away and hope for the best and start planning now. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to open this up for comment. We do have one speaker slip. Ms. Rosario Velarde from SOS.
Well, good evening, members of the council. I am here as the SOS representative, and we would like to extend our gratitude for all the support we have received this past year. It is incredible the hard work that all the members, staff, and senior have done to help achieve better health and wellness at the Adult Center. By working together, the city and community, we can work to achieve a better living for members of the community. Tonight, the group SOS are making the following petition for the senior citizen attending and participating in el Centro Adult Center. Number 1, we are asking for subsidy of $21,000 for health and wellness classes such as Zumba, Tai Chi, yoga, and for 2 new instructors. Number 2, we are asking for a subsidy for cultural tours in the amount of $3,200. Number 3, we are asking for subsidy of $800 for special events at the Adult Center. Number 4, we are asking for a subsidy of $720 for sewing machine. And number 5, we are asking for $400 for the purchases of new table to replace the old at the Adult Center because we want prevention accidents in that place. The total amount we are asking to cover this request is $27,000. And we say thank you very much, kindly, and appreciate your time. Thank you. And
Thank you,
thank you
Rosario.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really is wonderful benefits for the community, for the senior, especially for the client and the Adult Center. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so. If we can move on to number 11, legislative action.
Yes, Mayor, if I may ask, Chief, would you like to maybe speak to the request that we received through the committee that you're part of, through the League of Cities for AB 213?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just very briefly, the city manager asked me to just touch on this briefly. You have the letter in front of you, I believe, to support the League of Cities. About 3 months ago, I was approached by the Cal Chiefs to be a representative for Cal Chiefs as the Revenue and Taxation Committee. So I was up there this past month for our first committee meeting, and AB 213 came before the committee requesting letters of support. If you look across the state, essentially every city has been funds have been taken away, I think back in 2011 due to SB 89, the vehicle license tax fee. So this has been a bridge. I think it was SB 130 kind of bridged that gap for 4 cities, and now the state legislators are trying to fix that with SB 213. The amount to the city is a small amount, though, however, after hearing that budget presentation, any amount that we can receive funds back from the state to our general fund will obviously help. And so, as I represent Cal Chiefs, I will continue to look out in our interest as a city and bring that information forward. And so I think we probably received it anyways, but it's just to really re-support the fact that that letter of support to our legislators will help Cal chiefs as well as the California League of Cities across the state to push that initiative forward. So any questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, now we're moving on to public comments.
Wait, I'm sorry, can I just, in regards to the legislative letter, can I just ask that if we are to sign on, that we specify that it's the bill as introduced, just in case it gets amended in the future? We may or may not like the changes, but just to say that as introduced, please. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to public comments. The City Council welcomes your input at this time. Members of the public may address the City Council on any matter not listed on the posted agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, no action will be taken on any issue brought forth under public comments. We ask that you please complete a speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. Although you are not required to identify yourself pursuant to Government Code Section 54953.3, this information on the speaker slip assists the mayor that all persons wishing to address the council are recognized, and also assists the city clerk in preparing the city council meeting minutes. Unless the mayor extends the time, there's a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. Any information provided on the speaker slip is voluntary and will be public record. I'd like to call Mr. Parker, Mr. Vargas, and Mr. Cervantes. They've been waiting here patiently.
First off, we just want to thank you guys for your time. I know it's been a long day, and you guys have been very patient with everybody that approached you guys. But we're coming in regards to an event that took place on January 26th. Yes, they call it the annual Winter Slam Fest.
Yes.
It's an event where the community comes out. There's different vendors. We had skateboarding, biking, and whatnot, to that degree. And we're actually here because we really feel that is an important aspect to our lives, and we would like just to put it out there that we want to continue this event. If it can continue to, it can become an annual event. There's a lot of undertone aspects of this situation where, there's a lot of people in the community that don't really understand the lifestyle of skateboarding or extreme sports athletes in general. And it's a unity, it's a community that actually sustains itself, but we do feed off of the publicity as far as the events, the community coming together, bringing this event like they would do with like the yearly circus, or something that you guys bring annually, to bring the fullness of the unity in our community out. And we just want to continue just to emphasize that as it's an important aspect to our lives as well, because it brings out a lot of different, ethnicity, different people from different walks of life. And, there's people that skateboard, there's people that do motorcycling or football, just stuff like that in general. And we want to just continue to emphasize our passion for the sport that we have, which is skateboarding, extreme sports for that matter. And we just, for the gist of it, we just would be grateful that you guys would hear us out and even just take a consideration to that, to put a foot forward in that direction to, keep that up, if it would be something that you guys would, look into. But thank you once again, and you guys have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Fantastic.
I'll just say I want to commend the fact that you guys took the time to come forward and actually talk about this subject. I think when we all collectively move forward with the skate park, we had hopes that organizations and things like this would develop from it, and it looks like it's starting to. So I commend you to, on the fact that you're here, that you waded through an entire meeting to address us and share your passion for what you guys do. So thank you for doing that. And I don't know if the rest of you guys want to.
Just to reiterate, my name is Jonathan Cervantes. I work at the MLK Sports Pavilion. Just again to repeat, I'm here to thank each and every one of you guys for the opportunity that you guys have given us to use the skate park to host this event. I am the organizer. So specifically, I'd like to thank each and every single one of you, Marcella, our fearless leader, Adriana, and the PD and Explorer program for helping us out. Each and every one of your contributions have
You paid off.
really paid off. We appreciate them greatly.
Well, thank you for coming, and as my colleague stated, for sitting through a budget presentation,
Yeah.
just to
Right.
highlight
something to learn from.
your passion.
Yeah.
I noticed that two of you live in Brawley.
Yes.
So
We're
that's,
pretty frequent to the park here.
that's
Yes.
wonderful that we're getting that kind of community use, not just in this city, but in other cities. And our hopes is that we continue having events and utilize the infrastructure that we do have, highlighting both the MLK Pavilion and also the skate park. So thank you very much for coming.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for hearing us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were you gonna say something? No?
He pretty much said everything I was gonna say.
Can I just add that I was privileged to attend the event.
Yes.
I was there around 2:00, made a few remarks, hung out, listened to the music, right, walked around, and disappeared for a little bit. Had to take a power nap because it was a long day that
Yeah.
day
Yes.
in my office, and then came back later on once the sun went down. It was a cool event. I liked it. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of families there.
Yes.
A lot of young kids that were there to show off their skill.
Yes.
Right, and that is what I have seen and what I've enjoyed. The music wasn't necessarily my genre, right? But
Yes.
but it was cool. I'm open to that. And the funny thing is, you've inspired other people because there were folks that had asked me if they could do the same thing, but for a hip hop
Yes.
genre.
And that's actually what we're kind of geared towards too, because we actually have a skate company. I'm also a writer for our company, which is called Question Skateboard Co. We're really geared towards the younger people, you know, because I wasn't really too privileged to be able to excel in something different, which you know would have cost. But I was able to be provided with a skateboard, and that was a different outlet, which actually changed the course of my life. But we're really excited for events like that because it does bring out a passion. It brings out the unity in the community, and we're really I keep emphasizing unity because a lot of times we get people with with certain skepticisms or certain critiques or how they perceive a skater or a certain type of person, and we want to pretty much honestly we want to obliterate that. We're all unity. We're coming together. We're self-sustaining. But we do feed off of the community coming out and supporting us, and we get thrills off of it. We get excited when we see kids and their parents coming out, and they're like, okay, there's a skate park right across the street, and half those kids don't even come outside to the skate park, and that's something that was geared towards them. You know, so and throwing events of this nature, of this magnitude, also provides, you know, different vendors or people with different businesses to come out and explore a different avenue of people. You know, all people of all walks of life. I would like a taco of the what do you call it? Tongue taco, or you know, I'm not gonna talk too much. I'm sorry,
No worries, man.
but just you know, it brings a lot more out. It brings a lot more unity. People are not so skeptical of other people. You know, like we're just becoming one. Just mixing it up a little bit.
No, I appreciate that, and that's
Yes.
important because there are populations in our city that feel that they're either not represented,
Yes.
Or they're forgotten, or that they don't have a voice, right? And we tease each other sometimes up here, and when we joke around, they always joke that I'm the baby up here
Yes,
because I'm the
yes.
youngest one here. But
You're the one that had to go home and take a nap.
I did have to go home and take a nap. Because I was at every event that day, man.
Just thought I'd point that out.
I could just tell you that I was the one that hit all the events that day, and I think you only went to one, right?
But I was
So
the
I just
presenter that
I
one.
needed that's true. I just needed a quick 15 minutes, bro. Point is that a lot of my friends, right? They grew up skating in high school and things
Yes.
like that, right? I still ride my bike. I'm not good at doing the tricks and things like that, right? But I love when I see kids feel that they're part of a community. Their friends are doing that. They meet up.
It's an acceptance.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I do appreciate it, and I hope that you do put it together again, and hopefully we are able to be in a position to be helpful in the future.
Sir. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have one more speaker slip. Last but certainly not least, our good friend Charla from the Film Commission.
Good evening, Charlotte Teeters from the Imperial County Film Commission. I will make it very brief. Just want to give you a quick update on what we've been doing film-wise around the county for the part of this fiscal year. So far this year, we've had 35 productions that we've tracked, and they represent just under 1.5 million in estimated economic impact for the county. We've had 5 documentaries. With her, I've got congestion today. 5 documentaries. We've had 4 feature independent films, 1 reality TV, 10 music videos, 6 stills projects, 3 short films, 3 student films, 2 commercials, and 1 television episode. We've had brands such as Calvin Klein, Macy's, and Neiman Marcus. We've had National Geographics and Netflix. We've had Japan Airlines, and we've also had Dierks Bentley to shoot his Burning Man video. And then Bosch, the Amazon program, shot an episode here. So again, 35 projects, just under 1.5 million, and we have quite a few on the books for the next 2 months. We have a major feature that's coming. No, I can't tell you what it is, but but it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see on the silver screen for sure. Then last thing is I wanted to invite you all. We are going to do, for the first time, an annual dinner where we celebrate filming in the county and its benefits to our area. Excuse me. So that's going to be February 22nd, and I've given flyers. Hope you guys will buy tickets, come join us, and let's just celebrate our history with Hollywood and the benefits of filming in our area. So that's all I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments?
No, just continue doing what you do.
Try it. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Okay, now do we have any task force reports or council member reports?
Just very quickly, I went to the League of California Cities' new council orientation last week, and it was very eventful in that I was exposed to meeting other council members from throughout Southern California, and it was very refreshing to see about either 2/3, 3/4 of the folks there were newly elected, first-term members, and so we got to exchange a lot of ideas. I got to learn from different cities, and so I really appreciate it.
I think we all attended the Mardi Gras coronation and celebrated our new king and queen. Had a LAFCO meeting where I was named the vice chair for this coming year. Had the Vietnam Wall site visit at Buckland Park where the mayor and Mr. Oliva attended. I want to give a lot of thanks to our chief, our Andrea, our city manager, Clara. I mean, just there, a lot of staff put a lot of time into preparing something that I think and was talked about quite a bit by the selection committee about how well we presented and how welcome they felt when they came to our city. Subsequently, we found out 3 days later that we were selected as the site for the placement of the Vietnam Wall Memorial, which will be here in March of 2020. I had a meeting with Tom Henderson today as we begin that planning for that monument or that memorial. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for our residents. I think it's a great opportunity for the entire county of Imperial to have such a memorial come to El Centro or to Imperial Valley. The last time that any type of moving mobile Vietnam Wall memorial was in Imperial County, it was also at Buckland Park in 1992. Were you born yet? No? Okay. Tomas wasn't there. He's going to finally get to see it this time. So,
Just because I wasn't there doesn't mean I
he was taking a long nap. He hadn't come out yet. I want to say that we and not everybody's going to understand this, but the people that were involved, we put together something in a short period of time that just really blew away the selection committee. And I can't thank our members more because I think it was just incredible. But I'm so looking forward to it. I think, it's going to be a nice jumpstart to renovating, and we're going to have those discussions. I think whoever's on the Parks Committee for Measure P, I think it's going to be a good opportunity to start that talk about Measure P funding and what we do, and jumpstarting some of the construction there and some of the things that we want to get done maybe before that memorial comes next year. But the nice thing is we have 13 months. And although that doesn't seem like a lot of time, it gives us an opportunity to get some things going and get some things done beforehand. So I'm really looking forward to that. And also I attended IBDC meeting where I was placed or put or whatever on the Business Marketing Committee and International Committee, where we'll be trying to change a little bit of the face of IBDC and the way that we go after and court industry for Imperial County. And then, of course, we had a great League of Cities where we rang in our dinner meeting with the bell. So that was a good time. That's all I have.
It's been really busy since our last meeting. Kudos to everyone who participated in the National Day of Service at the Humane Society. I know Mr. Oliva was there. Our city manager was manning the table and making sure everybody signed the liability waivers. The press was there. They were covering the event, and I wanted, in particular, for the chief to be interviewed. And so he's starting to walk over towards me. And I think that was probably like one of the first times I've ever seen you like in jeans, tennis shoes, and like a t-shirt. I thought he was one of the high school volunteers who was on site. But I think that, and Abraham, I mean, you were just invaluable in being able to move all of that stuff. I think that we really made a huge difference at the facility, and I look forward to building on our National Day of Service next year. I really hope that it becomes an annual event for the city of El Centro. That was followed by the Martin Luther King event at the courthouse. Mayor, you did an awesome job. I think that group that puts on the Martin Luther King event Martin Luther King Jr. event needs some assistance. I think it would have been, we could probably help a little bit more with publicity, and they could have used chairs, because I think most of us were standing. The next day, I am a member of the SCAG Emerging Technologies Committee. I think that's going to go a long way to helping us with some of our data-driven solutions. Right after that, I stopped by the high school to meet with a recruiter for the new superintendent for Central Union High School District. Kind of walk through what I thought attributes, both professional and personal. Essentially, I told them they should take the superintendent that they have and clone him, because I think that would be fantastic. That night was ECRMC meeting, or ECRMC board meeting, and we are going to have a strategic planning session in March. So a full-on strategic planning session for the hospital coming up. The next night was ICTC, and I guess the big news coming out of the ICTC meeting was that they have finally ordered the replacement light post for the Dogwood Bridge, and I guess they had to find a new manufacturer. They ordered a couple of extras, and so that was the big news coming out of ICTC. The next day was the League of California Cities Rural Working Group. I think that is going to have a lot of benefit for our community. And then the next day, or 2 days later, I guess, was the rib cook-off. Who made it to the rib cook-off? I know you were there. No? Okay. I missed, actually, the Mardi Gras coronation because my daughter-in-law published a new book. And I was at the book signing in La Jolla, if anybody's interested in The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker. I'll bring the magazines next time, but so far Oprah's liked it and People Magazine, and I don't know if you guys know the magazine Real Simple. No? Okay, never mind. Anyway, so that was really a lot of fun. Marcella and I attended the countywide oversight board, and we approved ROPS for all 7 cities. I think we're going to have the next meeting in October, possibly on that. I think other than the National Day of Service and the Martin Luther King Jr. event, probably one of the funnest things, most fulfilling things that I participated in is at Wilson Junior High on Thursday the 31st. I was part of the Circle of Friends, which is their kind of their buddy program for their special needs students, and I was able to address the group at both of their lunches there. On the 1st, I attended the funeral for Greg Pettis, Cathedral City Mayor of Cathedral City, followed by, with the mayor again, the Carrot Queen, what was it called? Carrot Queen dinner?
Carrot coronation.
Carrot coronation, which is pretty
Make America great.
pretty cool. So anyway, it's been a busy little bit of time.
Yeah.
It has been busy. I'll keep this brief, as they've already outlined most of the events that I attended. I was very happy to see us partner with the El Centro Chamber and do the Mardi Gras coronation here, utilizing our wonderful courtyard. Everyone did a great job making that happen, and I think everyone had a great time. I spoke a few words at the MLK Jr. Remembrance event on the courthouse steps, and I agree with Councilmember Villegas Walker. I think we definitely need to get in touch with them, and we can offer some level of assistance in order to make sure that that event keeps going and that it's a little bit, we can contribute, is pretty much all I'll say. Also, I attended the what do we call it, when we basically welcomed the Antelope Valley Mobile Vietnam Wall. Again, I'd like to echo Councilmember Jackson's comments on all of the hard work put in by the city staff. It was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I know we pulled out all the stops. Thank you, Chief, for being there, having the explorers there. I think that made a big difference. I really enjoyed meeting the board in charge of the mobile wall, and clearly our presentation was well received, as we basically became the site. And I know they went to IVC right after they left Buckland, but I'm glad we kept it in El Centro. After that, I have attended the Carrot Coronation in Holtville. That was a nice little event. I'd like to, it's the first year that they opened it up to El Centro residents to actually try out for the coronation, and I believe we had, was it 1 or 2?
I thought 2 of the 3 were.
I think 2 of the 3 that were crowned junior, I believe it was the junior princess and the princess, were from El Centro. So that was nice to see. I think, oh, and of course, I can't forget this. I had the honor of hosting the Imperial Valley League of California Cities meeting that we had. That was a lot of fun. We hosted it in El Centro, and we did ring in the event with our bell, much to the amusement of our colleagues in Brawley. But it was a fun event. I think everybody had a great time, and I think we definitely represented the city well hosting that event. So with that, I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Everyone have a great night.